either state officials or health agencies or the Florida Hospital Association as it relates to the Florida specific example here. And how the information flows, to your question earlier yesterday, Shannon, is it goes from hospitals to states to the CDC. So I'm using this example to show you because this kind of breaks through the reporting of this data. This is from hospital systems that will go to states. And what you can see here, Florida, which is one of the states with one of the highest transmissive, or one of the highest rates of COVID, I should say, officials have said that more than 95% of those who were hospitalized were not vaccinated. That is information from last week, or just a couple of days ago. North Carolina, unvaccinated make up more than 99% of new COVID cases in May and June. That's from a few weeks ago, but still updated data. Colorado, more than 96% of Colorado's COVID hospitalizations deaths in the first half of 2021 were among unvaccinated. I'm using these examples because even as the masking guidance is put out later today by the CDC, we are still going to be sending a very clear message to the public that in order to protect yourself, save your life, save the lives of those around you, need to get vaccinated. Masking is guidance, but...
Yeah, can I follow up with you on this data point? Because, I appreciate you looking into this. It seems the problem, from when I talk to doctors, though, is that the Delta variant is evolving this situation so rapidly that even data from May or June might not be representative of what's happening now.
This is from July. A number of these examples are from July.
It was only July 9th, I think, or mid-July, which I know isn't that long ago, that the Delta variant became the dominant spread. So, when I talk to hospitals in places like Nevada, Missouri, Kansas City, those doctors are saying they're seeing more like 1 in 10, which I know is still not a majority, but it's different than some of these numbers. The situation in May and June, or the first half of the year when most people weren't vaccinated, is much different than it is now. So are you guys aware of that? Are you talking to people in some of the harder hit areas about what they're seeing?
Well, Shannon, one, I think it's really important to project data across a spectrum, right? Not from individual hospitals or individual cases, because what people are really looking at, or what we're looking at, is how it relates to across state data. Florida, this data is from 4 days ago. Florida is one of the states that has the highest rate. It accounts for about 20% of COVID cases in the country from the last data I saw. This is from 4 days ago. 95% of those who were hospitalized were not vaccinated. That's across Florida data from the Florida Hospital Association. Of course, we absolutely look at data, as does the CDC, and we're going to continue to evaluate and assess. But because this data goes into what the CDC reports, I thought it would be relevant to all of you to see and understand how we look at the across the state data. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. The CDC data showed, though, on July 6th that the Delta variant was the prominent strain, 51.7% of cases. So what took so long between then
Even
and now?
higher now.
So
as you know.
So that's what led to the change in guidance?
I'm sure you will get on the call with the CDC later this afternoon, and I think that's a great question to ask them. Our guidance is based on the public health experts and what they are advising in terms of steps that should be taken. I think it's, though, important to note, it has always been the case that the guidance has been, if you are not vaccinated, to wear a mask. That has not changed. That has been the case from the beginning. And also to get vaccinated if you're not vaccinated.
The president's message was get vaxxed or masked, and now it's get vaxxed and masked in some cases. So does he regret sending the message that it was a binary choice there?
Well, Leisha, I think that those comments were back in May. And as I noted at the time, the Delta variant was by no means a variant the variant that it is today. It was not even I can look at this specific data, but it was 99% of cases were not Delta at the time. That was based on guidance from the CDC. Today, they're changing their guidance. They're changing their advice to the American public, their public health advice, based on evolving data and an evolving historical guidance. That virus. That's exactly what they should be doing.
And what is your message to Americans who are feeling whiplash right now? Why should they trust the same group of health officials who just 2 months ago told them they don't have to wear a mask anymore inside?
Because our goal is to save their lives. And our responsibility and the responsibility of public health officials is to continue to provide updated guidance if it warrants from an evolving virus.
One more on something related. You've said many times from the podium as recently as Friday that it is not the federal government's role to mandate vaccines. Can you help us understand what changed between then and yesterday when that's exactly what the VA did? And is it a sign of what's to come for other agencies?
Well, I think the context of the question, which I think is important here, is can we mandate vaccines across the country? No, that's not a role that the federal government, I think, even has the power to make. The federal workforce is part of the workforce of the federal government. That's different, and very different from the question you just posed in important context. The VA is a huge provider of public health officials and to patients who are some of the men and women who served our country bravely as parts of the military, as members of the military. And this was a decision that followed and was aligned with, I should say, the decision by 57 hospital associations across the country to make sure they were taking every step they could to protect the servicemen and women who seek health services at the VA. I will also say, as a big employer, the federal government, it is also our responsibility to continue to look at ways that we can protect people and save lives. And so we will continue to look, agencies will continue to look, we will continue to look at what steps we need to take for our workforce. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. How closely has the president been monitoring the January 6th hearing on the Hill, and what's his reaction to some of the testimony from the law enforcement officers today?
Well, first I would say, I know you didn't ask me this question, but I know a number of us have watched the testimony this morning, which has been incredibly compelling, heart-wrenching, and at moments a reminder of the shameful events of January 6th and of the incredible bravery of the men and women of law enforcement who put themselves in harm's way to protect the Capitol, our democracy, and members of Congress from both parties. The president has had a range of meetings and briefings and engagements this morning. I know he's intending to catch updates and clips, and certainly staff will share with him what they've seen as we've watched the briefings, but he has not been in a position via his schedule to watch the hearings this morning.
Should we anticipate a statement from him at the end of the day after he's been updated on this?
I would not anticipate that, no.
And one on vaccines before you move on. You had just said that the message for unvaccinated Americans has always been to wear a mask. But how concerned is the White House that the message that unvaccinated Americans will hear after this afternoon is that even if you're vaccinated, you now have to wear a mask in some settings, and then just say, why bother then on the vaccine?
Well, here's the good news. We're all here. You're all here. You've got millions of people and Americans who watch your broadcasts and watch your shows and listen to you to hear what they should know about how to protect themselves and save their lives. So our message to the American public is we are at war. We continue to be at war with a virus, an evolving pandemic. Our responsibility here is to always lead with the science and always lead with the advice of health and medical experts. And we're going to continue to provide information to all of you about how to protect yourself and save your lives. We're not saying that wearing a mask is convenient or people feel like it, but we are telling you that that is the way to protect yourself, protect your loved ones, and that's why the CDC is issuing this guidance.
Thank you, Jen.
I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
When was the White House told that this CDC guidance was changing?
There's been, it's obviously a decision the CDC made. The president was briefed this morning by Dr. Fauci. But beyond that, we've been aware of their discussions with our public health officials. Yes.
And the CDC is also going to recommend that children in schools all wear a mask, that everyone in schools wear a mask regardless of vaccination status. But there are at least 8 states that actually prohibit their districts from requiring a mask in schools. So what are parents who have children in those schools, in those states, supposed to do?
Well, look, Caitlin, I'm happy not to live in a state where that is the guidance. And this is new guidance that is being issued by the CDC today. I don't know how it will influence local elected officials in these states, but I certainly hope for the health and well-being of the next generation that they take a close look at the guidance.
And one more question. You just said you don't think the federal government has the power to mandate vaccinations across the country, but they do have the power to mandate them within the government. So why is everyone who works in the federal government not mandated to get vaccinated?
Well, I would say first, Caitlin, that you saw the VA announcement yesterday, which was really about public health and about protecting the patients, the men and women who have served our country. But we are going to continue to look at ways to protect our workforce and to save more lives. I just have nothing to preview for you at this point.
Should we expect more vaccination mandates from federal agencies?
I think a range of agencies and leaders will look at what steps they should take to protect their workforce and save lives. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Just explicitly, when President Biden was presented with this latest guidance from CDC, what was his reaction? I mean, he welcomed the guidance back in May. What was his reaction this time? How concerned was he when he was told about this latest guidance?
Concerned in what way?
Concerned about, how this will impact the administration's ability to perhaps vaccinate those who do not want to get vaccinated.
I would say first that the president has always said that he is going to be guided by public health experts, by the CDC, and what our doctors are recommending. That has always been the case, and there have been discussions, as you would expect, for months now from the beginning about what steps need to be taken, should be taken to protect from an evolving virus.
So he did not explicitly talk about, maybe the administration should start worrying about, how this impacts your messaging, the work that you're doing on the ground. Did he have anything to say about that?
No, that's not how he looks at this. He looks at, as the President of the United States, at a time where we came in with a dangerous distrust in science and government and institutions.
And America waits for the CDC new guidance on masks, and so do private businesses as well. You're watching Live Now from Fox. Let's take another quick 2-minute break.
Sure. Not just when he's traveling, but just when he's at the White House. And even for White House staff, is there any decision on whether he or staff will start wearing masks?
We will be abiding by public health guidance, and if that is where we fall in the geographical guidance given by the CDC, we will also be following that masking guidance. Go ahead.
Thank you. First on crime, as shootings spike in Chicago, the superintendent of police there is blaming courts for releasing attempted murderers on electronic surveillance. Does the president agree with the superintendent, who was just here earlier this month, that ankle bracelets do not cut down on attempted murder?
I have to tell you, I have not seen these comments or looked at the full context of them. I'm happy to do that after the briefing. I think we know from seeing broadly the rising crime, or the rising gun violence across the country, including in cities like Chicago, that there needs to be greater assistance, greater efforts to make sure guns don't get in the hands of criminals who could do harm, and more assistance to local police forces and community policing programs as well. The president doesn't just use that as rhetoric, he delivers it with action.
And I know he's in discussions or aware of discussions about reforming the police generally. We've got cops now saying that the courts are too soft. Some progressives, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, are saying the courts are too strict. So what does the president think?
Well, the president, I don't think it's a secret that the president disagrees at times with the congresswoman about some aspects of policing. He believes we need to reform our prison system to keep our communities safe while addressing mass incarceration and by diverting nonviolent drug offenders and taking other steps that will improve rehabilitation and reduce recidivism. But he also believes, let's be clear, if you commit a violent crime and are found guilty and pose a threat to society, you should serve that time. And when you get out, you should have the support you need to successfully re-enter society. That's his view.
And then on the CDC guidance, why did the president say, if you've been fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask? Let me repeat, if you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask, if it was possible that that was going to turn out not to be true.
Well, Peter, I think we're all dealing with an evolving virus where there's no playbook and no historic precedent. And what the American people should feel confident in is that we are going to continue to be guided by science, look at public health data in order to provide new guidance if it's needed to save lives, protect the American people. When he made those comments back in May, we were dealing with a very different strain of the virus than we are today. And Delta is more transmissible. It's spreading much more quickly. It was nearly non-existent in the United States back in May.
And so my last one would be, you guys have been saying this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. If that is coming from the CDC, is the president satisfied with the leadership at the CDC right now?
The president is satisfied with the fact that they are continuing to look at public health data and provide public health guidance to the American public about how they can protect their lives and the lives of loved ones around them.
And if it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated still, then why do vaccinated people need to put the masks back on?
Well, Peter, first of all, I would say again, just to go back to this chart, which I will handily point to again, if you were vaccinated, It can save your life. And I think the clear data shows that this pandemic is killing, is hospitalizing, is making people very sick who are not vaccinated. That still continues to be the case, regardless of what the mask guidance looks like.
The vaccines work, which this sign says that they do. Then why do people who have had the vaccine need to now wear masks, the same as people who have not had it?
Because the public health leaders in our administration have made the determination, based on data, that that is a way to make sure they're protected, their loved ones are protected, and that's an extra step, given the transmissibility of the virus, that they're advising people to take. Go ahead, Steve.
Last year, when we went through this as a national discussion, talk about social distancing and shutdowns, is this White House eyeing anything other than mask guidance? I mean, this week you said you wouldn't lift the travel restrictions. Is anything else coming?
Well, again, we're always going to be guided by the public health guidance. That's how the travel restrictions decision was made. But we are not, this is not guidance about businesses shutting down or communities shutting down. This is guidance to individuals about how they can protect themselves. We've seen some communities, LA County, for example, where they have applied versions of mask guidance. It has not shut businesses down. It is meant to protect people's lives. That is the goal and the objective.
I ask you about expedited removals down on the border. As you know, there are advocates for immigrants who say that what this administration is now doing is taking away due process rights by empowering asylum officers to make decisions in the immediate moment for expedited removal. What's your response to that criticism? And on the other side of that coin, is it this administration's view that most of the people who are claiming credible fear on the border are not entitled to asylum?
Well, no, that is certainly not our claim. We are, of course, people who are applying for asylum who will go through the process, and if their case and their warrants, they will be granted asylum. What this is that I should say those families processed for expedited removal who claim fear will have the opportunity to present their cases before an immigration judge and request asylum or other forms of relief or protection from removal. So even those who are being processed. The processing of migrants for expedited removal is a traditionally employed lawful means to secure a border, and it is a step toward our broader aim of having a safe and orderly immigration system. I will say at the same time, we continue to work to build a fair, orderly, and humane immigration system. We recently expanded the Central American Minors Program and made 6,000 H-2B visas available to Central Americans. But we also want to be crystal clear. Attempting to cross into the United States between ports of entry or circumventing inspection of ports of entry is dangerous. It carries long-term immigration consequences. But no, we will still, of course, individuals who are applying for asylum, who warrant asylum, will be treated accordingly. Go ahead.
Jen, does the president's economic team see any ramifications to this masking policy? Are they concerned at all that it could affect consumer spending or any of the economic growth projections?
That's a great question. I will say I don't think we're quite at that point. The guidance, of course, is not, as you know, being released until later this afternoon. I will also say that as we've looked at kind of the economic impact of the Delta variant, one of the things we've looked at is that we have programs in place that are meant to be implemented over the course of time to ensure that Americans are getting assistance, getting additional funding into their pockets as needed, which was a lesson learned from the past about ensuring that there wasn't an abrupt halt to economic assistance as we're going through a historic pandemic, still at war with it, and as we're still going through an economic recovery. There's no significant signs at this point of the Delta variant's impact in that sense, and we'd expect that much of the economic impact would be felt in communities with lower vaccination rates. But we don't expect to turn back the clock to what it was in March of 2020 or even 6 months ago. But in terms of longer term analysis, we're not at that point yet.
Just on the infrastructure talks,
yeah.
The president obviously met with Senator Sinema. He's making calls on this. Does he see the end of the week as a more or less deadline to get a bipartisan deal on this?
I'm not going to be setting new deadlines today, but what I will tell you is that we were quite encouraged by the conversations overnight and into this morning. We see momentum. It's moving in a positive direction. You've heard that from Democrats and Republicans. That certainly is a good sign, and it's only Tuesday. Go ahead.
Jen, the federal eviction moratorium is scheduled to expire at the end of the week, and millions of renters are still behind on payments. I know the administration has taken other steps to aid with assistance, but is there any discussion about an extension of that moratorium, especially as we're seeing the Delta variant, rear its head?
Sure. Well, let me just give you, I know you followed this closely, but for others, just as a reminder, on day one of the administration, as part of the American Rescue Plan rollout, the president did call on Congress to extend the eviction moratorium through September 30th of 2021. The final plan, of course, did not include that proposed moratorium extension, and so the CDC extended the moratorium administratively in January, March, and most recently in June for a final month. So it's in place, as you noted, until January 31st. I don't have anything to preview for you at this point in time, but certainly we will be watching this closely, ongoing discussions about how we can continue to help renters.
Just on another subject related to January 6th, yesterday the White House said that it would nominate Matthew Graves to be U.S. Attorney for D.C., and if confirmed, he would oversee the prosecutions of hundreds of people who were arrested for what happened on January 6th at the Capitol. Did the president or anybody else in the administration discuss those cases with Graves before his nominations? Did they seek any particular position on those cases, such as being aggressive in charging and prosecuting them?
I don't have anything more on this. I'm happy to check and see if there's more we can convey about the personnel process. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on Peter's point, does President Biden have confidence right now in Director Walensky's leadership?
Absolutely.
Is there a reason why Dr. Fauci briefed President Biden on the new CDC guidance and not Dr. Walensky or Director Walensky?
I think Dr. Fauci is likely in town, but also has provided briefings to the president on a regular basis, as has Dr. Walensky throughout the course of the pandemic.
And on a different topic, what is the White House doing to specifically win over support from Democrats on the nomination of David Chipman to lead the ATF? Senator Durbin just told us this morning that Democrats don't have the votes, and Senator Tester also signaled this morning that the nomination could even be pulled. So is the White House still pushing through on that nomination, and what is the White House doing to whip up votes?
Well, I'd first remind people, as you well know, but for others, that not only is he a veteran of the ATF, but he's somebody who's been a supporter of smart gun reform measures that could save lives of people across the country. And the president felt quite confident in his qualifications and his ability to lead the agency at a time where it hasn't been led for many years. In terms of our specific legislative strategy, I'd really have to talk to the team and see where things stand with that.
And a quick follow-up. Senate appropriators just announced a deal on a supplemental on Capitol Police security funding. It does include about $1 billion for the special immigrant visa program. Does the White House support that deal between Leahy and Shelby?
We certainly have supported and advocated for additional funding for the special immigrant visa program, something that is a huge priority to the president. I'd also reiterate, since you gave me the opportunity, that our first flight of Afghan SIV applicants will be coming into the United States this week, which is a very exciting step forward and will be the first of many. In terms of the amount of funding, I would have to check with our legislative team on that as well. Go ahead, April.
Okay, Jen, a couple of questions. On COVID, are we at a point where we are saying that there's just no absolutes when it comes to what's happening in this moment?
No, we're not at that point.
Because we're possibly beginning to wear masks again in buildings. Kids could possibly be wearing masks in school. And those who are vaccinated are getting breakthrough COVID cases. So you're saying...
Look, I think here's what we all have a responsibility to do, is to provide the guidance and clear information that is being presented by public health officials to the American public, not to project confusion, but to alleviate the confusion. And it is also, it's incumbent upon the public health officials to continue to look at and evaluate and make recommendations based on data to save people's lives and protect people from getting the virus, being hospitalized, or of course dying.
And question on Johnson & Johnson and on the testimony today. Johnson & Johnson is in the news again, this time the National Council of Negro Women.
We are taking another quick 2-minute break right here on Live Now from Fox.
They targeted black women starting in the 90s with talcum powder that is said to cause ovarian cancer. Is this administration concerned with the credibility, the integrity of Johnson & Johnson, a company that is administering some of these vaccines in COVID?
Well, April 1st, it's ongoing litigation, as you noted, so of course I can't speak to that. But I do think it's important to note that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is entirely separate from baby powder, was approved by the gold standard, the FDA, which requires a rigorous look at the data and safety guardrails. The FDA approved the distribution and the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And again, it's entirely separate from the baby powder, talcum powder litigation.
Same company, the brand, and people will associate.
But the FDA is a U.S. government entity, and again, the gold standard, and has a rigorous review process, so people should remain confident in the vaccine.
Thank you. And lastly, on the January 6th Select Committee, last week President Biden said he has faith in the American people to ultimately get to the right place. And what is that right place, particularly when you hear testimony today from some of these police officers who, some are minority, some of the black officers said black officers fought a different battle. One officer said he was called the N-word, N-I-G-G-E-R, after answering questions of the rioters, the insurrectionists, as to who he voted for when he said he voted for Joe Biden.
Well, I think, April, as I said a little bit earlier, I mean, today's testimony, for anybody who watched it, it was a searing reminder of the shameful events of January 6th. And certainly that testimony, I think, will stick with people for some time to come. And what the president meant is that he is confident in the American people to fight for democracy, to fight for voting rights, to fight for, moving forward from the events that were a dark day in our democracy. That's why he strongly supports the actions by Speaker Pelosi and the efforts to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th so that we can prevent it from ever happening again.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got to wrap up, guys. Sorry, you got to event. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
And we continue to roll on right here on Live Now from Fox. Obviously, coming up in 90 minutes, we will have the new CDC guidance on masks. We will be featuring that for you right here on Live Now from Fox. It was the big questions of the day for the White House briefing, so we will bring that to you in just a little bit. And coming up in 15 minutes, especially, this is for our Arizona folks and really just all Grand Canyon lovers. Take a look at this shot here. This was over the weekend and into Monday as well. Grand Canyon having a little haboob action, dust storm, and a little bit of a lightning show as well. So we'll feature that for you coming up in the next 15 minutes from the photographer that captures it all and captures the attention of the whole country as well. So we'll be featuring that for you in just a little bit. Hey, here's a really green shot of the White House, everyone. It doesn't look like the colors are totally adjusted there, but like we said, in about 90 minutes, we will be featuring that news conference for you. And while we do wait for that, we will let's play out a little bit of NASA talking about their next new project here with Boeing. It's a project, well, it didn't start off the best way it could back in 2019 about a launch system heading to the International Space Station. But let's bring it to you right here on Live Now from Fox, everyone.
Pre-launch news conference. It's good to be able to say that. Following today's launch readiness review, ahead of NASA, Boeing, and United Launch Alliance's Orbital Flight Test 2 mission to the International Space Station. This will be the second uncrewed flight of a Starliner atop an Atlas V from Space Launch Complex 41 over on the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And this one is going, obviously, to the International Space Station. Here to provide details of today's review and readiness to proceed toward launch are a distinguished panel. Let me introduce them, and then I'll turn it over to them. Steve Stitch, manager of NASA Commercial Crew Program here at Kennedy Space Center. Joel Montalbano, the manager of the NASA's International Space Station program based at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Jennifer Buckley, also from Houston. She's the NASA ISS Deputy Chief Scientist. John Vollmer joins us. He's the Vice President and Program Manager for Boeing's Commercial Crew Program. Also joining us, Gary Wentz, Vice President, Government and Commercial Programs for United Launch Alliance. And also, Will Ulrich, Launch Weather Officer, U.S. Space Force 45th Weather Squadron. Again, we'll hear from each participant here, and then we'll throw it out for questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thanks, Kyle. It is great to be here today following the launch readiness review this morning. When we look back to last week, we had our agency flight readiness review on Thursday. We've closed out all of the open work from that review. We had a good, thorough launch readiness review this morning, and we're in good shape to move forward and to roll the spacecraft out and also the launch vehicle. It was great to be up at Launch Complex 41 this morning. We got to walk down the launch vehicle and Starliner and see the Atlas, the Centaur, and also the Boeing Starliner spacecraft, and it looks beautiful. Really a testament to all the teams that have worked so hard from Boeing, NASA, and ULA over all these 18 months to get ready for the flight. Gary and John will talk a little bit more about processing the hardware, but we're on track for the launch on this Friday, which is launch time of 2:53 p.m. Eastern. We do have multiple backup dates. Right now, the range would not be available on the 31st, but we would go likely to Tuesday, August the 3rd, with a backup launch time of 1:20 p.m. on August the 3rd. We talk a lot about the launch and getting ready for launch, but it's a very important flight for the Commercial Crew Program, having our second space transportation system available to carry crew to space. This flight will test many of the important systems on the vehicle in preparation for crew, such as the rendezvous sensor package to dock with the International Space Station, the NASA docking system. It'll be the first test of that system on the vehicle. And then when we get docked, there's a lot of activities we're going to do. We'll do some audio tests with the crew to test the comm system with the crew from space using the space station assets. We'll see how the vehicle performs on orbit in terms of the thermal performance, and also while docked, the atmosphere exchange, and we'll do some with the crew tablets and syncing those and taking data off of Starliner through the space station and then updating the tablet. So it's an important test flight for us. Right now, the plan would be to undock as early as Monday, August the 5th, and land that same day. And we would look forward to that as well. We'll stay up as long as we need to relative to weather. The ISS has plenty of consumables, but we're excited about the flight and looking forward to a great mission. And now I'll turn it over to Joel Montalbano.
Well, thank you, Steve. Again, welcome to today's press brief. This week has been very busy on board ISS as we prepare for the MLM docking this week and then the OFT-2 launch and docking. We have been keeping the crew up to speed on all the operations that have been happening here on OFT-2 preparation, and they're excited as we are. With 7 people on board, we have an opportunity to maximize the use of the International Space Station, maximize the use for research and utilization, the technology development that we'll use to go back to the moon, and for low Earth orbit commercialization. So it's really been nice to having all 7 crew members. So with 3 NASA crew members, a European crew member, a Japanese crew member, and 2 cosmonauts, it's really been a pleasure to have this crew on board. As you heard, we had our launch readiness review today with the Boeing team, the ULA team, and the Commercial Crew Program. And the ISS program is not working any non-standard open work. So we're ready to go for launch, and we're excited to have that. Steve talked about the launch time at 2:53 p.m. Eastern Time. We're carrying about 475 pounds of NASA cargo up and approximately returning 575 pounds of NASA cargo. And so we're excited to have another vehicle capability. Once this vehicle is docked, this will be the first time we'll have 2 U.S. crew-provided vehicles on board the International Space Station. So while we've had 2 crewed vehicles before, they were both Dragons, so this will be the first time we're having another provider on board. And that adds to the robustness of the space station program. And that helps us, not only the NASA agency, but it helps the partnership across the globe and allows us to bring people to and from the International Space Station and have redundancy in that process. And again, maximizing our use of the great space station we have. You know, I tell people all the time we have awesome jobs, and in fact, I tell people we have the coolest jobs in the world to work in the space program and work with people across the globe and to make things happen. It's been a pleasure working with the Boeing team, the ULA team, the Commercial Crew Program, and obviously our international partners and everyone involved in making this mission a success. So we're excited. We're looking forward to do that. And with that, I'll pass it over to Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. I'd like to talk for a few moments about the research we're doing on ISS, as well as some of the experiment hardware we're going to be bringing back on this flight. To date, we've done over 3,000 experiments on the International Space Station. Those come from over 100 countries and have resulted in over 2,000 publications, and we've served over 4,000 scientists and researchers. On this particular flight, we're going to be bringing back hardware that has been used on board to support some of those experiments. 2 of those experiments are in the field of tissue engineering. So we'll be returning hardware from the magnetic 3D cell culture experiment. That is from a company called In3D Biosciences. They developed and commercialized a cell levitation technology using magnets. And what this does is...
And let's take another quick 2-minute break right here on Live Now from Fox.
Magnetized into 3D aggregates. This is really important research that we've been doing in microgravity. We know that cells more readily form 3D structures and spheroids in microgravity, and so this was one of our early research and development as well as tech demos for bioprinting. We're also going to be bringing back hardware from antibody drug conjugates, or ADCs, in microgravity. This is in the field of cancer biology. This experiment tests antibody and drug conjugates using cancer therapeutics attached to antibodies. So what this does is it allows you to target specific proteins on the cells, on the outside of tumor cells. This not only can create more effective therapies, but also can reduce side effects since the drug delivery is very specific. We just talked about how the cells more readily form 3D structures. It is also believed that potentially doing this type of research in microgravity could approximate the 3D structures of tumors more in the human body than what you would get from trying to grow these in 1G. We're also going to be bringing back experiment hardware in the field of complex fluids. That is PACE, our preliminary advanced colloids experiment. This was an initial experiment used to calibrate our light microscope on board and enable an entire suite of advanced colloids experiments that continue today. And now I'd like to hand over to John.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. I would like to show a slide from this morning. Steve mentioned that we walked down the Launch Complex 41 with the vehicle. You can see the Starliner there atop the Atlas V vehicle. In the background, you can see the launch complex itself, and so we are looking forward to getting there. So we made it one of our objectives for this mission was to be full kit. We wanted to avoid any traveled work, and so I'm very proud of the Boeing team, all of our supplier partners, with ULA, Aerojet Rocketdyne, Collins, ILC, and many others. But they, along with us working side by side with NASA, have, through this entire journey, we made it through FTRR, the FRR, and then this morning, the flight readiness review with very, very few actions. And so we're very pleased to have been able to accomplish that with a very clean vehicle. And that was one of our objectives. We tried to make the Starliner for this trip, this mission, as close to a crewed vehicle as we could. And so we will be obviously working all the objectives and the flight demonstrations to prove that out. We will do everything we can except for the man in the loop. And even in those cases, we've enabled the abort. So that will be enabled for this flight so that we can check that system out. So another one of our objectives, we are We have our ops teams in both Houston with mission operations. We have our ULA team here at KSC, and we also have our Boeing Mission Control Center here at KSC. All the operators have been certified and trained, and they are ready to go for this flight. So we are very excited to have the opportunity to complete this test flight and have it be a leader for our path for the crewed flight to get us to ISS in the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Gary.
Thanks, John. ULA is excited to be here to launch the second orbital flight test in partnership with NASA and the Boeing company. This will put us one step closer to flying astronauts to the International Space Station from U.S. soil. We're especially honored to partner with Boeing and NASA and really appreciate the trust and confidence that they've put in our team and the Atlas V to launch the Starliner to space. This second flight gives us an opportunity to further analyze the mission-unique technologies that were developed specifically for use on the Atlas V and the Starliner configuration. These include a dual-engine Centaur like we launched on OFT-1. That has history back into Atlas II and Atlas III, and we plan to use that on future Vulcan Centaur flights as well. This Centaur uses an Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10 engine that was specifically designed by NASA back in the 1950s and 60s. And for this mission, we actually fly two of the RL-10 4A2s on the Centaur upper stage. The second technology specifically for this configuration involves the aeroskirt that was designed and put in place to improve the aerodynamic surface and to protect the Centaur upper stage from the loads, the aerodynamic loads that impinge on the vehicle during flight. It's a metallic orthogrid structure that you'll see when we roll out to the pad. You'll be able to see that structure extending down below the capsule over the upper stage. Unlike the orbital flight test.
All right, everybody. When we come back here on Live Now from Fox, we've all seen the beauty of the Grand Canyon in numerous types of photos, but have you ever seen it quite like this? We are going to talk to storm chaser and photographer Aaron Rigsby on the other side of this break, showing us his new pictures just captured, coming up in just 2 minutes right here on Live Now from Fox, everyone. welcome everyone back here to Live Now from Fox. Hope everyone is having a great Tuesday, great start to your work week here as we continue on second day of the week. And for those of you locally here in Arizona, you know, the last couple of days and the past weekend, we had some storms and some damage that was rolling through that we haven't seen in quite some time. But to really break it down, we want to show you some shots here that are just so incredible. I mean, look at this. This is the Grand Canyon. We all know the beauty of the Grand Canyon, but have you seen it like this? We now join the one that captured it all. Aaron Rigsby is joining us right now. And Aaron, thanks so much again for joining us. We talked a couple of weeks ago, and it was funny because you wanted to come the week prior, and then you said, you looked at the radar and you said, no, it's not time. And then you knew it was coming this weekend. Tell us, how'd you know?
Yeah, so eventually, or prior to this, I originally planned to come down for maybe about a week or so, but it was in that kind of in-between phase where we just got out of a really active period down in Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico, and the atmosphere was essentially recharging, and it didn't look too active for the time frame that I wanted to go down there. So I made it all the way down to Albuquerque, and I was just like, something wasn't settling right, and I was like, you know, I don't want to waste my time down here. I don't think this is quite the right moment, but looking at the models, it looked like the week prior was going to be a lot more active. And so I ended up hiking around New Mexico and just chilling out down there for a while before I made the trek down. And boy, did it pay off big time, because the shots that I captured over the Grand Canyon have been shots that I've been chasing for years and have been an absolute dream of mine to catch.
Yeah, and when you showed me these, I was like, all right, we got to talk about these again, because it's just so amazing seeing the Grand Canyon in this different type of setting. I mean, let's talk about this beauty here. What I love about this shot is you see the storm, it's coming, it's fast approaching, but you still see the beauty of the Grand Canyon. Let me just drop this lower third for everybody as well. Maybe explain this shot for everyone. I mean, this is so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was capturing this image originally, it took a minute for me to process what was going on, because this type of structure is normally something that I see, you know, in the plains during springtime. You see that those beautiful shelf clouds roll over all the time, even in the summer where I grew up in the Midwest. But never in my life did I expect to see the shelf cloud kicking out a dust storm like this heading over the Grand Canyon. And it was in a different domain for me too, because a lot of the times the storms that I chase are typically moving west to east. And this storm complex was actually moving east to west. So when it was coming toward the Grand Canyon, it was right around sunset time. So the sun was kind of going down, and it was closer to what we call the golden hour. And it was casting a beautiful orange glow, not only on the Grand Canyon, but on that dust that was being kicked up by these thunderstorms. And to get structure like that over the Grand Canyon, I've personally never heard of it. And I actually talked to a gentleman there who worked for NWS Flagstaff, and he has lived there most of his life, and he's never seen what we call a haboob going over the Grand Canyon, or seen structure like that come over the Grand Canyon. And we kind of talked about this in my last session too, about, you know, when you chase storms long enough, just when you think you've seen it all, she throws you a curveball. And that's exactly what we did here. I never in my life expected to capture something like that in Arizona, let alone coming over such an iconic spot like the Grand Canyon.
I know. I mean, the imagery is all there, and it just says so much about Mother Nature. And Aaron, I want to bring up this shot here, because this one is so beautiful and touching as well. I mean, lightning strikes over the Grand Canyon. I mean, this is epic.
Yeah, man, absolutely. This is the shot. This is the shot in particular. The haboob was the icing on top of the cake, and I was content with that. But this is the one that I have been chasing for years now. I've heard of it happening, but it's the thing is that the Grand Canyon is huge. But in retrospect, for a storm to move over this area, it's such a small target, and you only get maybe a couple times a year to where you can get these thunderstorms move over the canyon, get these shots like this. And the thing that was tricky about this is that I actually had to drive west further into the canyon because it was raining on me the entire time. And I found just a little pocket of dry air to where I could get out and hopefully have a narrow window to work with to capture some lightning strikes of the Grand Canyon. And it worked. In that 5-minute dry period that I had with just a little bit of misting rain coming down, I got a few strikes to strike dead center in the Grand Canyon. And it was hilarious too, because some of the local tourists that were around there, they were like kind of looking at me like, why is this guy getting so excited, like what is going on? And I showed them on my camera what I had just captured, and they were just in awe. And I told them how rare it is for this to happen over the Grand Canyon. And I think when I told them that, they were just as excited as I was, because some of the people there were originally going to come the following day, and they ended up pushing it ahead, and they were extremely grateful they got to, witness this event. And there was a little boy there too with one of them, and it turns out that he wants to be a photographer when he grows up. So seeing him see me get so excited hopefully will inspire him to potentially capture these same images maybe 10 years down the road from now, similar to how it started with me.
Oh, truly, absolutely. And for people that are looking at this shot, can you just explain what the timing has to be to capture something like this? I mean, are you literally shooting before you even saw this? Because if you saw this, like, as it was happening in real time, it would have been too late by the time you captured it, right? So are you just constantly shooting?
Absolutely. So I've got the trigger held down the entire time. And when it gets closer to the blue hour and dark like this, I open my camera shutter for about 5 to 6 seconds. So basically it's letting in as much light as possible in that 5 to 6 seconds. So the frame stays open a lot longer. So you have a little bit more of a window to capture these lightning strikes into the canyon. But the tricky thing with monsoons are that it's not the consistent lightning that you see with these big complexes in the plains in the Midwest. It's usually 4 or 5 strikes, and you have to hope that you get those strikes before the storm collapses and dies. And I got fortunate enough with this one. And then this particular image, I was extremely excited for. And one of my friends who happened to be down in the same area, he walked up literally right as I captured that image and was going to say hi to me. And I got so excited, I jumped up. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it finally happened. I ran up and jumped into his arms. I'm like, what's up, dude? How's it going? And then I showed him the images that I just captured. And it was at that time that I realized that, something that you envisioned capturing for so long to finally become a reality, the excitement level cannot be described. And especially for how hard you have to work for these images.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just shows just the whole beauty of everything around us, and really just showing us maybe how little we are as people, too, when you see these massive storms roll through on such a big canyon as well. Let's show one more, Aaron, and look at this shot. Maybe talk about this one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was funny, before this happened, and haboobs are no stranger to Arizona. They happen all the time, but I literally had never heard of a haboob moving over the Grand Canyon like that. It takes a very unique type of setup to make this happen. And for this, we were originally heading toward Cameron, Arizona, because we thought that the whole day was pretty much butchered. We didn't expect any storms to roll over the canyon. I waited at the Grand Canyon for 8+ hours, watching storms just kind of die before they got over the canyon, or not really producing any lightning like I had originally anticipated. So me and a couple buddies ended up trying to go to Cameron and get the storm complex that was rolling through to salvage something out of the trip. And this is kind of where my instinct kicked in over the years of chasing, and I saw more storms start to fire north of where this original complex was. And I told him, I was like, you know what, guys, I really think we should stay in the park. Let's stop at the last entrance, get this overlook, and kind of scope it out and just see what happens. And sure enough, as soon as we got out, literally all of the storms just unzipped. It was a big complex that was rolling through. And we got to looking, and originally I thought it was just rain reflecting off of the setting sun. And then the closer that it got, it became apparent that this was a dust storm or a haboob getting kicked up from the storm complex. And as it moved closer, we got to see the structure kind of fill in and start to move over the Grand Canyon. And it was really funny to see the tourists' reactions when we were there, because, I'm running back and forth along the side of this canyon, trying to get every angle possible as the haboob starts to come into the Grand Canyon and overtake us. And I explained to them what was going on, because to the normal eye, it kind of freaks you out at first seeing a big wall of dust come at you. And once we explained what was going on, they got super excited and started getting out their cameras and taking pictures. And they just had grins ear to ear, seeing how excited all of us photographers there were. And when the dust storm eventually overtook us, the whole canyon started to fill with dust and dirt. And we got hit with 50-mile-an-hour winds, and the temperature plummeted 20 degrees. And that's when I was talking to the guy from NWS Bikes. I was like, have you ever heard or seen anything like this before? And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, but I'm excited because I've been time-lapsing it for the last hour and a half. So we knew we were catching something special. Before we pulled up, we joked around oh, it'd be cool to get a haboob over the Grand Canyon. And we're like, ha ha ha, yeah, not gonna happen. And then Mother Nature was like, here you go, have it away. Here's your dream shot.
Yeah, almost put it on a silver platter there for you. I mean, that is the way to do it. Aaron, we appreciate you for really sharing this to our Arizona audience and really everybody across the country. If you haven't already done so, everybody, you want to see the more amazing shots from Aaron Rigsby. I mean, he's on social media, Instagram, Twitter. Go follow him and just see his journey because it is so amazing. And thanks so much again, Aaron, for not only sharing your passion, but your beautiful pictures.
Thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate it. It's been a great time.
No problem, man. Stay safe out there as you capture more epic moments just like this. And with that, everyone, we're going to take another quick 2-minute break right here on Live Now from Fox.
Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. You can see we are waiting for some of our senators to make some remarks again after that first hearing with that January 6th committee. We are going to be taking this in a little bit as we continue to give you some more news stories that happen here across our country. But I did want to let everyone know first what we're going to be heading out to is there's been a lot of talk about what's been going on over at the Tokyo Olympics as we have yet another more events continuing to take place. I'm going to be introducing here, we do have Cindy Bowen who is joining us here. And so Cindy, let's just first start with kind of talking about Simone Biles, who is now withdrawn from the team event. This resulted in the team getting the Olympics, now a silver medal. This really has been a scene where a lot of people's eyes have been on Tokyo and waiting for this event to happen. Now she's withdrawn. So what are your takes on that?
Whatever happens, Simone Biles is must-see TV. And for her to pull out of this event, she pretty clearly was in torment and didn't feel she was helping her teammates. During one of the events on Sunday evening, she had to sort of change in midair, if you can imagine, going from 2.5 rolls to 1.5 and still sticking the landing, not perfectly, but you know, anybody else would have just gone splat, and she was in no frame of mind to continue. She's been dealing with a lot of pressure. She comes in, you know, as the GOAT. She comes in, took it on herself to compete in the Olympics after thinking about retiring because she's the last surviving, or the last active, I shouldn't say surviving, she's the last active gymnast who was a victim of Larry Nassar in the awful scandal, and she wanted to show, look, you can survive this, you can thrive, you can overcome it, and she couldn't do it. She talks about her demons. She was just in no frame of mind. She didn't look happy Sunday night, and now she'll take a day off. She'll talk to medical professionals, and we'll see where she is on Thursday, if she can continue to compete or not.
Now, I have to ask the question, of course, there's going to be some people out there who say that this is a little bit selfish, that she, has abandoned the team. What do you have to say to some of those people?
Well, she could have abandoned the team before the Olympics. She's there. She worked with all of her fellow gymnasts. She was coaching them. She was encouraging them. She could have just walked off the stage, but she stayed there with them while they competed. And, she is part of the team. They adore her. She was sort of the unofficial coach after she pulled out, and was the first person over to congratulate the Russian Olympic Committee when they won. So, I think she did everything right, and she's going to try to right herself. But, she came in with a lot of baggage. She's talked about what a heavy weight this is for her, and it just really overcame her.
And I have to ask, Cindy, what are your thoughts on, because this all happened where we had to push the Olympics back a year, do you think that added to the pressure that she's been feeling? Because obviously, like you mentioned, she's physically fine, but it's just emotionally and mentally been a really tough place for her to be in right now.
I think it's probably more a matter of being in Japan, where none of her friends, none of her family could come with her. She lost part of her support system away from the gym. She has a strong support system, of course, with her fellow gymnasts and her coaches, but sometimes a family can take pressure off in ways that your colleagues can't. They know how to push your buttons and kind of get you to relax, and I think that hurt her. And I also think not having crowds. It's competing in a public library.
And again, she said she's going to be taking things one day at a time. So just based off of some of your own intuition, what are you expecting to see from Simone here in these next few days ahead of these individual events?
At this point, I don't think anybody knows, and I don't think I have a guess. I think she will probably compete in a couple of events. I can't really fathom her leaving with nothing more than a team silver medal, but it could happen. This is where she is. Michael Phelps has dealt with this at times. Naomi Osaka, plenty of NBA players, NFL players have dealt with mental health issues and getting their minds straight and getting back on track. So nothing would surprise me either way, really.
And you pointed out something really good, too. All these Olympic athletes, when they're headed into these competitive events, they've been working towards this goal of the Olympics probably since they were able to walk. They all enter their own individual sports at an early age. I'm sure there is a lot that it takes to have the mental toughness to go into so much uncertainty when you're facing, tough competition in the Olympics. You're facing the best athletes in the world.
Well, and she also, she's 24, but as you can tell by her routines, and one of the things that makes her so popular is she's a very, very powerful athlete, and her body just takes incredible punishment. And she had talked about the Olympics beforehand. Someone asked her what she was looking forward to, and she said, I'm looking forward to it being over. And she said, everything hurts. My ankles hurt. Everything hurts. So, there's also a lot going on there. She's for better or worse, nearing the end of her athletic career, and that plays a factor, I think, in it too.
Yeah, and I think, too, some people were saying, and so I want to just get your last thoughts on this final question. Some people were saying it's good that she's recognizing where she needs to put a stop to some of these things. And I'm sure that takes a lot in you, too, to say, no, I have to withdraw, as they are in, again, these huge public eyes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how many times have we seen an athlete, be told to suck it up? No pain, no gain. And I think athletes, like so many other people, are beginning to realize the value of seeking help when you need it. Michael Phelps was really instrumental, as Olympians go, in bringing attention to that.
Right. So we do appreciate, Cindy, you joining us here on Live Now from Fox, helping give a little insight to what's been happening over in Tokyo. Cindy Bourne joining us here with the Washington Post. Thank you again for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks.
And don't forget, we will have everyone continue to stay up to date, not only on events like this, but also events happening all across the country. We are going to head out to Capitol Hill once again here very shortly, but first going to send some of our viewers off into a quick 2-minute commercial break. Then we're going to be hearing from some of our Senate leaders after that January 6th committee hearing happened earlier this morning. So once again, some of you first going to see a quick 2-minute commercial break. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. Christy Larson here at the desk with you as we continue to bring you live news events and, of course, top stories that are happening not only across the country but around the world. We have you fully covered right here on our Live Now from Fox stream. We want to continue to keep things moving along. Going to head out to Capitol Hill, where we do have some of our Democratic leaders who are stepping up to the podium, and reporters really throwing a lot of questions at them. Don't forget, too, coming up here at the next hour, we are expecting to hear from the CDC. They are giving out new guidance for masks. This is going to take a lot of patience from people as they have finally gotten some of those restrictions lifted. Now we're going to go back into a mode where restrictions are going to be giving some guidance, and more masks are going to be also being put in place. So once again, we'll be going out to that. That's going to be happening in the next hour. But for now, we're going to head out to Capitol Hill, listen in, as we did have some of those senators stepping up to the podium and answering questions on that January 6th hearing.
Debbie, stay away. So are you. Okay, we're going to speak without the masks, but wear the masks. So I am now without mask, which means I'm about to speak. All right. First, I'm glad, as usual, to be joined by Senators Durbin and Murray and Stabenow. So, as you can imagine, we have another very busy week in the Senate. This morning, the House began its inquiry into the events of January 6th. The special committee in the House was forced into existence because Senate Republicans and Leader McConnell blocked the formation of an independent commission like the 9/11 Commission. That's a fact. The reason they had to do what they did in the House is because McConnell said no. The testimony America heard from from our brave Capitol police officers was extremely... Hey, can we have it quiet, please? Thank you. The testimony we heard from our brave Capitol police officers was powerful, harrowing, and necessary for the country to hear. In fact, I don't want to play favorites, but the New York Times did a video of the Capitol invasion about 3 weeks ago. I really commend it. It's 40 minutes. It's no editorializing. It's so powerful. I would urge, how many of you promised to watch it? You're not allowed to do that as journalists? Okay. One. Oh, he's from... He had to watch it to keep his job, I suppose. Okay. All right. It's really a great video. I shouldn't have asked you to raise your hands. But now I won't answer any questions. No, that's a joke. It's very important, as I said, we do this. January 6th was one of the darkest episodes in the history of our democracy, the first time the Capitol was breached since the War of 1812. And we have to get to the truth of what transpired, what and who caused it, not just the people in the building, but many others who have been involved as well. And I'm hopeful that this inquiry will get to the bottom of that. We have to do this to ensure, make as certain as possible that this never happens again. Now, in large part, because of the horrific events of January the 6th, the Capitol Police is running out of funding. Senate Appropriations Chairman Leahy has put together a necessary security supplemental to ensure the Capitol Police don't run out of money and reimburse the National Guard for their support. A months-long mission to keep the Capitol secure on Inauguration Day and after the insurrection. We are now seeking a time agreement to put this important legislation on the floor and pass it this week. These brave officers put their lives on the line. They put their lives on the line defending the Capitol and each and every one of us. And they are heroes, plain and simple. And they ought to get the funding they need. There is no reason for Senate Republicans to oppose funding the police and funding the National Guard. Now, briefly on infrastructure. On infrastructure, we're making good progress on both tracks. The bipartisan infrastructure bill and the budget resolution with reconciliation instructions. We had a good discussion at lunch. We're doing all we can as a caucus to quickly achieve both tracks. If an agreement can be reached, and I'm very optimistic and hopeful it will be, senators should prepare to work through the weekend in order to finish the bipartisan infrastructure bill. As I've said from the beginning, we got a lot of work to do, but it's my intention to get both the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the budget resolution in the Senate passed before the conclusion of the work period. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Schumer. This is an historic moment. This special committee in the House of Representatives investigating January 6th is long overdue. It should have started with a bipartisan commission. That was proposed in the Senate. It was killed by Senator Mitch McConnell of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. He decided that we would not make that investigation on a bipartisan basis. I salute Speaker Pelosi for moving forward, and I give a special salute to my colleague from Illinois, Congressman Kinzinger, who at some political peril has joined this bipartisan effort. I thank him for doing that, and I hope that it all ends well and soon. But I do want to say this too. We are at an historic moment in the Senate. We know this economy is starting to show signs of real life. In just 6 months, we've gone from creating 60,000 jobs a month to creating 60,000 jobs every 3 days under the Biden administration. America is opening for business. But our effort on infrastructure is to make sure that that continues, that the momentum continues forward, creating new jobs and new opportunities for people across America. I salute the bipartisan group, but it's time to close the deal. I hope they can get it done soon. As Senator Schumer has said, we're going to stay until it is done, and I heartily support that statement on his part. We have work to do, but if we do it together, it'll be in the best interest of this country, and we can move forward to the budget resolution.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. I have heard nonstop from families and communities in my home state about the long list of challenges they are dealing with during this pandemic and coming out of it. The costs of basic like child care and health care and higher education. The need for policies like paid leave to support workers and pre-K for every young student. For many of my constituents, the long fight for a fair pathway to citizenship. And across our state, I'm hearing about and seeing for myself the effects of the climate crisis and the urgent need to act on 21st century infrastructure, on electrification, on reducing emissions, all of which help create good-paying union jobs and make our country more competitive in today's changing economy. And of course, we are still not out of the woods when it comes to COVID-19. And we have to make a real investment in public health so we are better prepared next time. And I know Democrat or Republican, other senators are getting the same kinds of questions. These are issues just about every American is dealing with in some way. So my hope for the coming days is that each senator tunes out the noise, listens to their constituents, and comes together to work on both the bipartisan infrastructure package and also the Build Back Better plan, which helps us not just get back to normal, but to ensure our country can come back stronger and fairer from this crisis. Senator Stabenow.
Thank you. As Senator Schumer indicated, we are here to get the people's business done, and however long it takes. At this point, we all know it's time to invest in the future of American families and American communities, and that's what the two bills that are in front of us do, and we are committed to getting those done. It's very exciting when you look at the opportunity to create millions of good-paying jobs, rebuilding our roads and bridges and water systems, and I certainly know how important that is to the people I represent in Michigan as well as across the country. And we also need a national strategy to bring jobs home. And that's what the president's talking about. That's what we are talking about. Create American supply chains in clean energy that will create jobs, create it in other technologies. It not only helps the economy, it's about our national security. So this is really important. We also know that investing in our country is more than roads and bridges and water systems and broadband, as important as they are. It's about the future for our families. So for us, we want to cut taxes for the majority of Americans, working Americans, and make sure the wealthy pay their fair share, period. And it's about lowering costs for the things that keep families up at night, whether it's child care, elder care, the cost of preschool or college, or the cost of medicine. It's time to invest in America, our places, our people, and our future.
Thanks, Deb. Questions? Yes. I'm not supposed to get, well, go ahead.
How long can you actually let these bipartisan talks go on? It's been more than a month since they...
I know, and as you know, I've been doing everything to speed them along, first with the motion to proceed on Wednesday, and second with the global offer that we made Sunday night. We're getting close, and I'm hopeful we can get this done soon. Yes?
Can you talk us through a bit in the last 24, 48 hours the progress made on the infrastructure bill and what issues are still outstanding?
There are a bunch of issues still outstanding. I mentioned them on the floor and yesterday, but we're making progress. We're not there yet, but we're making progress. The number of issues has been narrowed significantly. Yes?
Senator Manchin told us that if the bipartisan bill falls apart, the reconciliation bill then falls apart. Your reaction to that?
Look, I'm working on getting both bills done. We need to get both bills done for the good of the country. They're both very good bills. They're both important. What one bill has, basic infrastructure, the other bill doesn't, and what the other bill has, the one bill doesn't. So we've got to get both done. Go ahead, Burgess.
Are you saying you will keep at the bipartisan talks until you get something? Like there is no...
There's got to be some kind, as I said, I think we're close. I also said we're going to get this done by, through the August recess if we have to stay, period. Okay? Last one, then we got to take the picture.
What about pacing reform?
Senator Booker, I had a nice talk with Senator Booker, and he's continuing to work at it, but they're not in an agreement yet. Thank you, everybody. We got to take the picture. We're waiting. We're going to on the masks. We're waiting for the guidance to come out from CDC, and we will then come up with what the caucus recommendations would be. Okay? I want to wait and see exactly what she says before going forward. So right now, you have to do what you think is best. For myself, I'm going to put on the mask, until I go in to take the picture. And
Should Americans be
okay.
concerned about shutting?
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, got to take the picture.
All right, so once again, Chuck Schumer acknowledging that we do have that CDC update. Again, there's going to be new guidance on masks when it comes to everyone across the U.S. for both vaccinated and unvaccinated people alike. So we'll, of course, have that. Again, that's going to be coming up here in about 40 minutes is when this press conference is supposed to take place. We'll have it right here on Live Now from Fox for all of our viewers. We are still, just to give you a look, we are still waiting for some of our Republican side to step up to this podium, also speak on everything from the January 6th hearing that took place this morning to infrastructure, COVID-19, mask mandates. So once we do see some of our GOP leaders step up to this podium, of course, we'll be taking that for our viewers as well, because we like to show both sides of every issue. Until that time, though, let's head out to Michigan. We do have a live event taking place. Governor Whitmer is announcing plans for historic investment in affordable housing. Now, this is all part of the funding under President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan. So we're going to listen into this event live on Unfiltered right here for you on Live Now from Fox.
This actually gives Michigan an even greater tool than that, to be more flexible, to really challenge the status quo, to make the different types of investments and think bigger. That's an exciting opportunity. And this administration, as Gary, our director, told me earlier, this administration, under the leadership of Governor Gretchen Whitmer, we're going to do more with this fund than done with it before. And that's really important because we recognize how deep the challenges are. And so we're going to help people with the fundamentals in a new way. Again, down payments, security deposits, avoiding foreclosure. Solving those issues are the first few steps to removing those barriers for individuals looking to create a home. This is how we start making a difference. Safe and affordable housing encourages and empowers Michiganders to lead lives with dignity and respect. And these funds will allow people in Michigan to access more than just a house. This will help people invest and create homes. This will potentially change the lives of more than 6,000 families. That is an incredible accomplishment. More than 2,000 rental units, leveraging, again, that private investment. This stable housing will allow people to put down roots, become embedded in communities like this one and those that are similar to it across the state. You know, we often say that we are working towards making Michigan a state for opportunity, prosperity, and success for everyone. This is creating equitable access to that opportunity. So as the governor said, I want to reiterate, I'm committed to ensuring that every Michigander has access to safe, affordable housing, and that we continue to make these investments everywhere in Michigan. What comes to mind to me is a quote actually from Mahatma Gandhi, who said that the future depends on what we do in the present. Well, when Governor Whitmer and I took office, we focused on putting Michigan first and getting things done in a way that will make differences in people's lives today, right now. And today's announcement is one of those moments, where we're laying a foundation in the present that will make a difference in people's lives going forward. This is tangible action. This is progress. So thank you for hosting us. I don't know where Tom went. Thank you for hosting us and having me here for this incredible announcement. And thank all of you who are contributing to creating more available and affordable housing in Detroit and in Michigan. So now it's my honor to hand the podium over to Mayor Duggan of the City of Detroit.
Well, this city is changing so fast, at times it's hard to keep up with. You're sitting in an abandoned steel facility that's now been reused as a plant to build affordable housing. And in the neighborhoods of this city, it's been remarkable. In the last 5 years or so, the average property value in this city has doubled. And if you're a homeowner who stayed in Detroit, that is great news for you. For most Detroiters, in fact, most people in Michigan, your greatest source of wealth is your home. It has been the source of generational wealth for the people of Michigan for decades. That's great news. But if you're a renter in one of those neighborhoods, what you feel is anxiety, because you don't get the benefit of the appreciation, but you do end up with higher rent. You start to ask the question, am I going to be able to stay in this neighborhood? Am I going to be able to stay in this community? And we have no greater challenge in this city than making sure that those who stayed have a place they can afford, a good, quality house or apartment in which to raise their families. And so we have sat down and said, we're going to do this. And since Gretchen Whitmer has been the governor in the last 2.5 years, we have never had a greater partner in building affordable housing. In fact, today, more than 2,000 affordable rental units have either been opened or under construction in the city of Detroit. We are making sure that no one is pushed out of this city because of their ability to pay. And if the governor's record wasn't good enough, last week she set a new record. And if you didn't see the announcement, the city of Detroit was awarded by MSHDA 7 more projects for 450 more affordable units. Right? And this is the way we're doing it, right? And we're going into abandoned buildings like this one. We made the announcement last week at the long-abandoned Lewis College of Business, an historically black college in this city on Myers, that was going to be torn down, and instead it is being renovated now for senior apartments. And with the $100 million announcement today, that opens up a whole opportunity for more and more housing, more and more renovations. And so last week when MSHDA made the announcement, and I was told that the MSHDA director, Gary Heidel, wasn't going to be there, I called to tell him he was absent. He told me that he was in California on a well-deserved trip. But he has been such a great partner, I said, I can't wait to have you in town to thank you personally. I didn't think it would happen quite so quickly, but let me introduce the great director of MSHDA, Gary Heidel.
Well, one of the problems with coming after 3 great speakers is they stole all my words. I do have to say at least one thing, and that's to Governor Whitmer. Thank you so much. I've been at MSHDA for a while, under 5 governors. This is the first governor that's made housing a priority, and we really appreciate it. This has been an unprecedented year. It's been absolutely crazy. We have had to really deal with the housing crisis, even more so than we did 10 years ago in the Great Recession. And so within that, we've had a tremendous partner at the federal level. We have stood up a rental assistance program of over $1 billion. We're still spending that money down to help people who could be evicted from their rents. We will be standing up a $243 million mortgage recovery program. That funds still have to be allocated by the state legislature. And then, as you just heard Mayor Duggan say, we did announce a couple of weeks ago the next round of the low-income housing tax credit program, which is the #1 multifamily incentive in the country, and 7 projects were in Detroit. We did do projects around the rest of the state too, by the way, including my hometown of Flint. But this is the kind of thing that you're seeing happening more and more so. And I give a lot of that credit to the creativeness at the local level. Local leaders, nonprofits, developers of all kinds. Matter of fact, one of those developers is sitting in the back of the room, my good friend Amin Irving, who's done an incredible job working in the city of Detroit too. He probably didn't know I was going to do that, but I can't help because he embarrasses easily. So. But this award of $100 million for the Housing and Community Development Fund, this is incredible. One of the things that we have suffered from in Michigan is the lack of a housing trust fund. 47 states have it. And some of them are a little smaller than 100 million, some are at 100 million. But this is what's kept us from really doing the creative things that we can do to really meet this housing crisis. And this is an example of one of those. I have to give a little shout out to Tom, but also to my staff back at MSHDA, our Neighborhood Housing Initiatives Division. They're created in order to look for those new creative things, and they stumbled on this. This is something we actually had conversations with Donald Rensher at the city of Detroit, who works for Mayor Duggan, used to work for me. And we found that, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And there's great partners in this project, too. Ford is in this. The Detroit Land Bank is a part of this also. So this is the kind of things we're going to be able to do, in addition to those really other things that you heard both the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the mayor talk about that help people find high quality, affordable homes. It's going to be a unique process, though. As was mentioned, the fund is already in law. It's on the books. The last time it was funded at a small amount was by...
And just a heads up for some of our viewers, we are going to be going into a quick 2-minute commercial break and switching gears when you return to more COVID-19 news as we're waiting for CDC guidance. Again, that will be coming up after a quick 2-minute commercial break.
In the Senate, Republican Senator Mark Jansen, who unfortunately passed a few months ago, but both of them were a tremendous force in providing bipartisan leadership to pass this. We'll probably have to draw on them a little more as we twist a few arms.
Here is a live look at the Dow. A red day here today. We started off in the red, and it looks like we continue that trend as we are down nearly 200 points. Currently there at that 176 mark. So we'll continue to keep our eyes on the stock. This all coming at the same time too, when I know we've been mentioning it a lot, but it is going to be a big deal. CDC is going to be announcing new guidance for masks. So once again, we'll have that for everyone here on Live Now from Fox. And since that's been a topic of discussion across the country, we do see those COVID-19 cases continuing to increase across the country as well. We just heard last week from the COVID-19 response team that some hospitals starting to see their capacity filled up once again with these patients who are dealing with these COVID-19 symptoms, especially as the Delta variant spreads. We do have a lot of updates that are taking place. I was going to head into one, but I do see we have Mitch McConnell just stepping up to the podium, so we're going to switch gears. Listen to that first here on Live Now from Fox.
He was a remarkable individual, smart, quiet, effective, the best kind of United States senator, and we look forward to honoring him further when we find the funeral arrangements are announced. With regard to where we are, we had an extensive discussion about infrastructure in our conference at lunch. But one thing we know beyond the infrastructure package is the reckless tax and spending spree is headed our way. And I can predict confidently again there'll be no Republican support for this. The country does not need this. In fact, we're playing Russian roulette with our economy by continuing to pour trillions of dollars into our economy. So that will be an extraordinary debate of enormous dimensions. I can't think of a single issue that underscores the difference between the two parties more than the reckless tax and spending spree that we'll be dealing with here in the next week or two.
Let me just echo what the leader said about our colleague Senator Enzi, and I'm sure Senator Brasso, you've heard him speak to this already, but he was the consummate professional. He was the kind of guy that what you see is what you get. There weren't any pretensions there. Hardworking, principled, and just as genuinely good a human being as they come. So a real loss for obviously his family, Wyoming, and his family here in the Senate and in our country. Just let me say about the tax and spend proposal, the tax and spend spree that's been outlined by the Democrats, that I was happy last week that every Republican senator here sent a letter to the President outlining something that we will never vote for, and that is the proposal to raise taxes on small business people and family farms and ranches that the President has outlaid in their, or laid out, I should say, in their $3.5 trillion tax and spend proposal. And part of that, I think, harkens back to the fact that a lot of our farmers and ranchers throughout the pandemic, as they always do, showed up day in and day out. And one of the real silver linings, I think you could say, about the pandemic is we never had a food shortage. And we owe that to the people who are out there every day working hard to make sure that we have a stable and affordable food supply. And they shouldn't be rewarded by their government with a big fat tax increase as a result of that. And so our members weighed in with the White House, made it very clear that that was something that we're not going to tolerate. And I'll say one other issue about our farmers and ranchers. I had been requesting for some time a hearing to take a look at the potential manipulation in the meatpacking industry. Meat packers have been reaping big profits. Those profits have not been seen by producers across this country. And we had an Ag Committee hearing a few weeks ago that examined that. And now the Judiciary Committee is also going to take a look because one thing we know is that the livestock producers in this country deserve fair, transparent markets. We owe that to them. And I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to see that we get them some answers as to what's happening in the markets out there that are seeing the meat packers continue to do well, ranchers continue to struggle, and consumers continue to pay skyrocketing meat prices at the supermarket. That is an unacceptable situation.
Well, thanks to all of you for the condolences that we've been receiving about our friend and colleague Mike Enzi. A number of you went to his Christmas cookie party every year. As you know, his wife Diana would bake hundreds of dozens of cookies and invite everybody. The press would be invited, the police would be invited, the plumbers would be invited, everybody on Capitol Hill, all part of his family. Truly beloved in Wyoming. People really, they knew Mike and they understood that he respected them, that he understood their problems and he believed in them. And for that reason, he continued to get elected and reelected through 4 terms in the United States Senate. To the issue before us now in the Senate. This past weekend, Nancy Pelosi demonstrated who is truly running the Democrat Party. It's not Joe Biden, certainly not Chuck Schumer. Nancy Pelosi went on national television and she made very clear that any bipartisan infrastructure bill passed here would not see the light of day in the House unless and until the Senate sent her a $3.5 trillion reckless tax and spending bill. This wasn't a negotiation, this was a hijacking. What she's proposing is bad for the economy and bad for the country. So she's not only a hijacker, she's also an arsonist, because what she is proposing is going to put jet fuel on the flame of inflation that is hitting this country today. You say, who are going to be the victims of this? Well, the victims of this inflation and taxes, it's going to be certainly people on fixed incomes, seniors, young families starting out. The victims are also going to be every middle-class American who's going to be paying more in taxes and more when they go to buy things. I'm sure you've seen, if you fill up a vehicle, that you're paying $25 more for filling up your tank now than you were when Joe Biden took office. If you go to a weekly grocery shopping, you're paying about $25 more for groceries than you did when Joe Biden took office. That is what we're looking at, and it does seem the Democrats want to drag us back into the age of Jimmy Carter inflation, and you remember they talked about the misery index back then, the impact of the economy of these policies. So Nancy Pelosi has said basically there will not be a penny for roads, not a penny for bridges, not a penny for ports, not a penny for airports, unless and until the Senate passes increase in taxes and spending on the American people. There is not a single Republican in the House or the Senate who is going to support this tax and spending spree, which is clearly irresponsible.
Well, COVID continues to be a problem, obviously. I think the Center for Disease Control is going to make some announcements on that later today. I hope that they'll be more forthcoming with information than we've had up till now during this pandemic. I don't know of any reason not to share the information that the Center for Disease Control has. For instance, a lot of talk about people who've been vaccinated but then got COVID-19, the Delta variant, or some other kind of COVID-19. If you share those facts and figures right, that shouldn't be a big shock. As I recall, one of the vaccines had an 85% or so effectiveness rate. Another one had a 95% effectiveness rate. That would mean, you know, somewhere between 5 and 10 and 15 of every 100 people that get the vaccine are going to get COVID. But the good news is the people that got the vaccine that got COVID have a very different circumstance than the people who didn't get the vaccine and got COVID. I had 3 stories I thought I'd share with you today. One in Monette, Missouri, near my hometown of Springfield. A guy named Cole, who was married, 26-year-old, father of 2 young children. His symptoms got really bad. He thought his family was losing him. It didn't work out that way, but here's what he said. He said, quote, "I just remember sitting in the hospital and just thinking to myself, you could have avoided this. I just don't want anyone to feel the way that I felt." That was Cole's quote. And then I saw in the Columbia, Missouri News report, a person who lost her youngest sister and her brother's wife to COVID, and having other family members battling that illness in the hospital. Marlene asked everyone to get a vaccine. Here's what Marlene said about her sister. This is her quote. "She didn't know what the long-term effects of the vaccine would be. Well, COVID-19 was her long-term effect, and she's gone." Today in the St. Louis report on a national news network, Kimberly Jones in St. Louis talked about her daughter, Erica Thompson, who had died, leaving behind a husband and 3 sons, age 8, 11, and 12. Her mother, Kimberly Jones, speaking for the family, said, as she prepared for her daughter's funeral, she hoped others would be convinced that they need to do the right thing for themselves and their family so that other people aren't preparing for their family's funeral.
President Biden's political advisor is now very, very concerned about inflation. And the demographic that it's hitting the hardest, those that are the most concerned right now, are women. The price of goods and services for nearly everything has gone up because of Bidenomics. And with this $3.5 trillion package, what do we see? We see middle America being hit the hardest with the inclusion of things like the Green New Deal and with new taxes on our farmers and ranchers and small businesses. This has got to stop. Middle Americans are the ones that are paying for Bidenomics. We simply can't afford $3.5 trillion. And folks, I think that's a low estimate for what the Democrats want to pass. They need to stop this reckless tax and spending spree. And I do hope that there are some common sense Democrats that will put an end to this.
I hope everybody's following what's going on in Cuba right now. We have the Cuban population has finally said enough is enough. They've shown up, they've gotten on the streets. They have, unfortunately, the Castro regime is beating peaceful protesters. We have over 500 dissidents. Some of the dissidents I've talked to over the years. We don't know where they are. We do know some of them are being tortured, if not all of them. You can see the pictures of young boys being taken from their homes, being forced to serve in the military because they can't get enough people to serve right now. So this is our opportunity. This is our best chance. But Joe Biden's got to stand up. And by the way, you know, if you look at Latin America, Cuba's a problem. Cuba defends Maduro in Venezuela. He supports Ortega in Nicaragua. So a lot of the unrest we see in Latin America is caused by the illegitimate Cuban regime. So what is the Biden administration, what should they do? They should shut down the embassy, the Cuban embassy here in D.C. The Cuban government's an illegitimate government. That's number one. Number two is you have to use all the resources to make sure whether they do it or the private sector, we get the internet on the island. You can do that. I've been talking to technology providers. It is doable. On top of that, they ought to show the pictures, show the videos of what's happening. Jose Daniel Ferrer's family's here today. His daughter's here today. His sister's here today. His brother was here yesterday. I mean, where is he? Our understanding is being tortured right now, only because he believes in what we all believe in is freedom. So Joe Biden's got to stand up, start talking about this, and talk to world leaders. Where's Macron? Where's Boris Johnson? Where's Merkel? Where's Trudeau? They shouldn't be supporting an illegitimate government in Cuba.
Peter McConnell. Recurring message at the hearing today over on the House side on the January 6th attacks was a frustration from the officers who were responding with those who were downplaying the significance of the attack on January 6th. As somebody who were here on that day, what is your message to those who have been downplaying the severity and the significance of the attack on the Capitol on January 6th?
I had a good deal to say about that, not once, but twice, on January 6th and again on February the 13th. I don't see how I could have expressed myself more forthrightly than I did on that occasion. And I stand by everything I said on January 6th and February 13th.
Why not, Peter McConnell? Did you watch any of the hearing today?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I was busy doing work. I serve in the Senate.
Peter McConnell,
Yeah.
just before you Democrats were here with masks on, I'm just wondering, all of you made the decision not to have them on. You can imagine, it's almost like the confusion that Americans are experiencing today. We don't know whether to wear them or not if we're vaccinated. Yeah. What should be done? And also, the CDC says vaccinated people should wear them. Will we get the stickers back on?
Well, this particular environment here in Capitol Hill is extremely well vaccinated. And we just got the report from CDC, and I think we'll all be thinking about the way forward. But it's pretty clear that if you're vaccinated, as Senator Blunt pointed out, your chances of having the disease are pretty small, and almost everybody in the Capitol complex is vaccinated. So this environment right here is pretty safe. But we'll have to see what the reaction is to their announcement.
Leader McConnell. Wow. 6 statements.
And with that, the senators walk away, and they did mention, of course, not only that January 6th hearing that we do have up on our streams, but we do also have him speaking to the CDC guidance, and that is something we are expecting. Again, that's going to be taking place here in just about less than 10 minutes is when it's scheduled for. We're going to be carrying that press conference here on Live Now from Fox. Until that time, though, I am going to send some of our folks off into a quick 2-minute commercial break, the last one of this hour. And then when you return, we're going to be listening into a COVID update from Chicago as they talk about the Delta variant, plus, of course, other cases continuing to rise in their city. So it's all coming up here again after a quick 2-minute break.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for joining. I'm Dr. Allison Arwady, Commissioner at the Chicago Department of Public Health. I'm joined by Dr. Geraldine Luna, Medical Director at the Chicago Department of Public Health. We're here to give a COVID-19 update. I'll do that in English, and then Dr. Luna will follow in Spanish, and then we'll have an opportunity to take your questions. So first of all, we want to start with an update to the travel advisory. And as you have been hearing, the news around the country on COVID-19 is not good. There are now 14 states and 1 territory on Chicago's travel advisory. So today we added 9 states: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Kansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Wyoming. They join the states that were already on the list: Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Florida, and Nevada, as well as the Virgin Islands. As a reminder, these states are added to the travel advisory list when they are seeing surges in COVID-19 cases, specifically more than 15 cases per 100,000 population per day. And as another reminder, people who are vaccinated, the travel advisory